The carnival had appeared overnight on the empty lot behind the school. Its bright lights and cheerful music masked a strange unease that crept through the air. My friends dared me to explore the mirror maze, laughing as they shoved me toward the entrance. Their voices faded as soon as I stepped inside, swallowed by the eerie silence that followed. The maze was cold, much colder than it should have been for a summer night. My sneakers squeaked on the polished floor as I moved forward, the mirrored walls reflecting endless versions of myself. I grinned nervously at one of my reflections, but it didn't grin back. The expression it wore was blank, its eyes dull. The air grew heavy as I ventured deeper, the reflections growing stranger. One version of me had darkened, hollow eyes like deep, empty wells. Another had a twisted grin stretching far too wide. My breathing quickened. They weren't just mirrors. They were windows into something else. I turned a corner and froze. A reflection of me stood in the center of the hall, facing away. But I hadn't moved into view yet. As I stepped closer, the reflection turned to face me slowly, its movements jerky, like a poorly wound automaton. Its face was mine, but distorted, as if seen through rippling water. I reached out and the mirror rippled under my touch. The reflection's hand shot out to meet mine, fingers pressing against the glass from the other side. Before I could pull away, it grinned, sharp, unnatural teeth glinting under the flickering lights. I stumbled backward, crashing into another wall of mirrors. The reflections here were worse. One was covered in blood, its clothes torn, its hands clawing desperately at the glass. Another had no face at all, just a smooth, empty surface where features should have been. As I watched, the faceless version pressed its hands against the inside of the glass and tilted its head, as if studying me. The maze seemed to stretch endlessly now, the corridors twisting in impossible angles. My reflection multiplied with every turn, filling the mirrors until I couldn't tell where I was. The lights overhead flickered erratically, casting long, shifting shadows. In one mirror, my reflection wasn't alone. A dark figure loomed behind me, its body a swirling mass of black smoke, eyes glowing faintly red. I spun around, but there was nothing there. When I looked back at the mirror, the figure was gone. My reflection mouthed something silently, its lips moving too quickly for me to understand. The mirrors began to hum faintly, the vibrations pulsing through my chest. A sharp crackling sound made me whip my head around. One of the mirrors had fractured, a spider web of cracks spreading across its surface. Through the broken glass, I glimpsed another version of myself, gaunt and pale, clawing frantically at the shards. I ran. The corridors shifted around me, the mirrors warping as if alive. Some showed endless darkness, others reflected images that couldn't exist. Desolate wastelands, endless oceans, and towering, crumbling structures. My breath came in shallow gasps as I rounded another corner and found myself in a circular room. In the center stood a tall mirror, its frame ornate and covered in grotesque carvings. Unlike the others, it showed no reflection. Its surface was black, like an open void. The air in the room felt alive, heavy with a sinister presence. I stepped closer, unable to stop myself. The glass rippled, and a version of me stepped out. But it wasn't me. Not anymore. Its eyes glowed faintly, the same red as the shadowy figure from before. Its grin was wide, inhuman. It tilted its head, mimicking my every move, but with a mocking precision. The thing lunged at me, and I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. When I looked up, it was gone. But the mirrors around the room reflected dozens of it, all grinning, all stepping closer. I scrambled to my feet, spinning wildly, searching for an escape. One reflection wasn't like the others, it didn't move with me. Instead, it reached out, pressing a hand against the glass. Its expression was panicked, its mouth moving as though shouting warnings. The words formed faintly in my mind. Don't trust them. Don't trust yourself. The mirrors shattered simultaneously, the sound deafening. Shards flew through the air, but none touched me. Instead, they floated, spinning in place, their jagged edges glinting under the dim light. The reflections inside each shard twisted and turned, showing grotesque versions of myself. Broken, bleeding, lifeless. The dark entity emerged from the largest shard, its smoky form coalescing into something solid. Its face was a grotesque imitation of mine, features stretched and distorted. It spoke without words, its voice echoing inside my head, telling me I was never meant to leave. I bolted toward what I thought was the exit, but the maze only twisted further. Every turn led me back to the same black void, the ornate mirror standing in its center. The shards floated around me now, forming a swirling cage. I tried smashing one, but my hand passed through it, the reflection inside grinning as it grabbed my arm. A searing pain shot through me, and when I pulled back, the skin on my arm was darkening, the same smoky black as the entity. It was consuming me piece by piece. The ornate mirror's surface rippled again, and I felt myself being pulled toward it. My legs wouldn't move, my body frozen as the dark version of me stepped closer, its grin widening. The reflections around me whispered now, their voices overlapping. You are us. We are you. As I was dragged into the void, the last thing I saw was my reflection in the shards, trapped, screaming silently as the maze consumed me. The carnival disappeared the next morning. No one remembered it had ever been there, but sometimes on moonless nights, faint whispers echo from the empty lot, and the sound of laughter, warped and hollow, drifts through the air.